historically, your livelihood was dependent upon whether or not you had a male in your life. So just think about generations before us, right? You could not get a credit card, you could not get a house finance, you could not, there's so many things that you couldn't do on your own. So through the years, a part of that message of stick it out, struggle through, endure, and all of that came from the fact that if you didn't do that, the consequences for that could be dire for you. And this is not just kind of 2-3 generations. This is, generational from way, way, way back when, right? So women's livelihood and who they could be and how they could move in the world was so largely dependent upon whether or not they had a man in their life.
In this episode of In the Meantime, we're talking about what comes after love ends, the ache, the silence, and the slow work of putting yourself back together. Through this week's Porch Talk letter, Picking Up the Pieces, we hear from a woman navigating life 6 months after a breakup. Honest about the back and forth of blocking and unblocking, writing texts she'll never send, and trying to find herself again after loving someone who forgot how to love her back. Together, we sit with the grief that comes when us becomes me and the beauty that can still grow in the ruins. We talk about the heartbreak as a form of becoming, the kind that hurts but also clears the soil for something truer to take root. And as always, we'll leave you with a little truth to carry in the meantime. This is In the Meantime.
Wisdom for the spaces between who we were
and who we are becoming.
Welcome to episode 3, Matters of the Heart, part 2. Y'all, this is a big one. Healing after a breakup. Now, the last time we talked about hoping for love, but today we're going to talk about when love ends, like, what it feels like when something you thought would last doesn't.
We've all been there, picking up the pieces after the kind of heartbreak that shifts the whole spirit, your whole spirit.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness. All right. So, but before we get into today's conversation, it's time for Porch Talk. So, if you're new to Porch Talk, this is where we bring a story from us or from one of you that connects to today's theme. This story and others like it reminds us that feelings that we're feeling aren't just ours and that we're not alone in whatever situation we might be going through. So, we're going to let Ms. Angela take it away with the Porch Talk letter.
Okay, this is the Porch Talk letter. Dear In the Meantime, we were together for 5 years, long enough for my mama to start referring to him as your person, long enough for my daddy to pull him aside one Thanksgiving and say, you treat my daughter right now, you hear? Oh, he met my people, knew my friends, had a toothbrush at my place before I even realized when it got there. I gotta be honest and admit there were red flags. I see that now. But I was raised on nobody's perfect and relationships take work. And a good woman knows how to stick it out. So I did. I stuck it out through the moods, the long silences, the arguments that ended with me apologizing for how I reacted instead of how he acted. The breakup didn't happen in one big moment. It was slow. One morning, I just looked at him across the kitchen table and it hit me. He wasn't looking back anymore. His body was there, but baby, that was about it. We tried to fix it. Nah, let me be honest. I tried to fix it. You know that feeling when you're doing everything to save something that's already gone? Planning date nights, sending long texts, trying to pray it back together, but the love was gone. It was gone. This was the last straw. He came home late again, smelling like a mix of outside and someone's else's perfume and had the nerve to tell me I was tripping.
Mm.
The gaslighting, I wasn't crazy. I was just done. So I ended it. And for a minute, I felt strong, like a boss. I said, "You gotta go." And I meant it. But then things were quiet and heavy and lonely. And when the loneliness came, I admit I reached for my phone out of habit and realized there's no one to call. I blocked him that night, then unblocked him a week later just to see if he would even notice.
Mm.
I even wrote a text, that long, I just need closure kind of text, and deleted it before I could hit send. I tell myself I'm healing, but every now and then I still check his IG, not because I want him back necessarily, but because I want to see if he's hurting too, or if she's the reason he's not. Now it's been 6 months. Some days I feel free, lighter. Other days I'm still raw. I'm learning how to eat alone, sleep alone, and laugh again without feeling like something is missing. But the truth is, some nights I still replay it all, what we had, what I thought we were building, and the parts of me I lost trying to keep him.
Mm.
How do I find myself again after losing so much of me, trying to hold on to him? Signed, Picking Up the Pieces.
Whew. Wow, y'all. That's the kind of honesty that'll make you sit quiet for a second. A lot of people have been there, loving somebody so hard that you yourself start to disappear.
Yeah. So she said she saw the red flags, but she stayed because she was taught to. And so it had me thinking, I like was taking notes, y'all. I got some stuff to say. But
Right.
one of them is, how many of us have been taught that nobody's perfect. Relationships take work. A good woman knows how to stick it out. Those are the messages that so many of us grew up hearing. So I think that is a good place to start and kind of begin the conversation.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's the thing. A lot of us, especially Black women, we were raised to love through the struggle. We were raised to love through the struggle, to
Mhm.
pray harder, hold on tighter, and I ain't gonna forget about fasting.
Right. That's right.
Make it work. But sometimes what we call loyalty is really fear.
Mhm.
Fear of starting over, fear of being alone. We don't want to be alone. We don't want to be lonely. We don't want to go to the. I mean, uh,
Yeah, and it's worth saying. Look, this letter came from a woman in a heterosexual relationship, right? But heartbreak is heartbreak. It doesn't
mm,
care about the gender, who caused it, or how it ended, right? Sometimes women are the ones who walk away, and sometimes we're the ones who break somebody else's heart. The reality is, though, y'all, the pain is still the same. It's still the
Mhm.
same.
you
Yeah.
know, my children's father. We were in a relationship not for 5 years, but for 16 years.
Wow. Wow.
For a
Mm.
long time. I think I was like 27 years old when 27 when I almost said
Mm.
but anyway, and girl, now looking back, I was distraught. I mean,
Mm.
because when growing up, you grow up in a relationship, you grow up wanting to be in a relationship.
Mm.
Everybody wants somebody.
That's right. That's real talk.
Yeah.
That's real
Everybody
talk.
wants somebody. So
Yeah.
what do you do? What do you
Mm.
do?
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think it's super important that to kind of this is probably just the way my mind works, but generally, we've said a lot, this is how we were raised, this is how Black women were raised, endure and speak through it, all this kind of great stuff, to stick it out, and nobody's perfect and struggle through it. And so it always just kind of makes me think, like, how did we get here? Like, how did
Mm.
we come to be the people that are taught and told to stay in what clearly seems like a troubled relationship, because you talked about the red flags. And it made me think about how historically your livelihood was dependent upon whether or not you had a male in your life. So let's think about generations before us, right? You could not get a credit card. You could not get a house finance. You could not, there's so many things that you couldn't do on your own. So through the years, a part of that message of stick it out, struggle through, endure, and all of that came from the fact that if you didn't do that, the consequences for that could be dire for you. And this is not just kind of 2-3 generations. This is, generational from way, way, way back when, right? So women's livelihood and who they could be and how they could move in the world was so largely dependent upon whether or not they had a man in their life. And so although we talk about how resourceful we are and how much light we bring and, how much we can do within the context of a family, it still didn't matter if we were not partnered. So just think about that being taught through the years, until women started to say, you know what, I'll do just about anything. I'll put up with just about anything. I think you add the layer of challenge of being a Black woman that we are, and just kind of how we've had to navigate and move through society. A large part of our upbringing was taught to protect these Black men who were being targeted, right? So you certainly aren't gonna embarrass or bring to the public sphere something bad or disheartening about a man who, historically has also been, in a position that's vulnerable. And so anyway, I say all that to say, when we say like, dang, why did I put up with this? Right. I think it's important in order to start healing is to say, okay, how did I get here? And I think we've all, and I say all, but I mean, women generally have moved through the generations with the added burden of having to get and keep a man just to sustain our lives in the world. And so when we come to this point of, I see these red flags, should I say, should I go, what should I do here? I think understanding how you got here is an important part of the healing process. And so for her, you're sitting across from a man who clearly is no longer interested in you. You're just there to be there. And so I think that begs the question of, do I believe I deserve better for myself?
Heck yeah, you better believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, while you were talking about that, I was thinking about all the songs that I listened to the left, Beyonce, Chris Brown, Residual. I mean, but
yeah.
We as Black women, we have got to. I think self-care is so important. We as Black women, we need to start doing more self-care, because if we do more self-care, then you're going to make sure that you're being cared for.
That's wild. So, because what you're saying is, like, are you saying we look to others to take care? Because I'm thinking about what Tiffany says. Historically, we've looked for the men to be the providers and protectors and to take care of us, and that was kind of our role. And you're saying, but when we look to men for that, though, right? Like, and when we don't focus on us and take care of us, because then that's why I think a lot of self-esteem issues and insecurities, and we kind of let ourselves go. We lose ourselves in these relationships, right? And so I think all of that. So what you just said is powerful, because when you really start taking care of yourself, and I'm not talking about, a lot of times people think of self-care as taking a bubble bath or taking a walk. While all of those are good things that you can do, but we're talking about really taking care of yourself spiritually and mentally and physically, right? Because when you show up and you've really taken care of yourself and you feel good about you, then am I to assume then that it would make me think twice about being with somebody for a long period of time, even though it's obvious that the relationship is not going anywhere.
Self-care is important. Self-care is so important.
But rest is revolutionary for Black women.
Yes.
Self-care is an act of defiance, because we were never supposed to take care of ourselves in that way. We were brought here to take care of everybody else, right?
Yes.
And so when we say, you know what, I'm gonna treat me good, I'm gonna treat
Mm-hmm.
me good,
Yeah,
then
because
Yes.
that
we
in and of
always,
itself is
yeah,
offensive to some people.
yes,
And
yes.
Yes.
we have largely perpetuated that. I think about kind of growing up and being like, oh, I'm bored. You know, oh, I got plenty for you to do. I got you clean this, you can do this, you can do you
That's
know,
right.
but really maybe the concept should have been, all right, girl, well sit down, relax and
Right.
ease your
Yeah.
mind. You
Yeah,
know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
yeah, yeah,
But that
yeah.
wasn't
That's
for us. There
we have
was always something
we
to
have got to start
do.
a
Mhm.
movement of change.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Movement
And
of
I
change.
think we are. I
Yes.
think we
I
are.
was just getting ready to say yes.
Absolutely. I think we
Okay.
are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll
Yeah.
just add one more thing, Mom. I think you're about to say something too. I think one of the most important things for me after a breakup and the kind of going through that process and being on the other side of it and saying, you know, what did this come to teach me? What did this come to teach me about myself? And one of the things, I don't know if I heard this somewhere, if I wrote it in my journal or something, I don't know where it came from, y'all. So if
Mm.
you're the one who said it, just send me an email and say, girl, that was me. Um, but is, you know, I want to treat myself so well that I recognize immediately when somebody is not treating me well. I want to
Mm.
treat myself so
Yeah,
well
yeah.
that I will know who is for me by the way he treats me because it mirrors how I treat myself. Oh, I recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yes.
oh, he treats me
Yes.
well because
Mm.
I treat
And you
myself
know
well and
what?
I know what
You
it
know
feels
what
like when that's not
too?
happening.
That is so true, Tiffany, because I tolerated the abuse with that relationship early on. Because
Mm.
I started with this relationship, I think I was 14 years old.
Mm.
And but now, if you raise your voice at me,
Absolutely not.
I'm, I'm gonna tell you about it. I'm gonna tell you about it. I'm gonna tell
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Look at that look. You
girl,
might not even have to say anything because that look says it all. That look
baby,
says it
baby.
all.
Oh, I love me. And
Yes.
sometimes you have to say, I love me, but then you say, do you really love me?
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
talking to Angela, and I do a
Mm.
lot of self talk,
Mm.
a
Yes.
lot of
Yeah.
self talk.
Wow.
So, girl,
Mm.
if I
Well,
take care of me.
and that's so key. So I want to go back to just quickly because she was saying she saw some red flags. Because I think when we talk about relationships and when we talk about heartbreak, and sometimes when we talk about heartbreak, it's really easy to look through a lens of it's the other person.
Mm.
It's the other person's fault, like it's what they did. And I'm wondering, I heard both of you all kind of mention this kind of indirectly when you're talking about Angela, you talk about do a lot of self-talk, just the introspection, right? Like, what do you tell yourself? So when she mentioned, I saw these red flags. So I'm just interested in knowing from both of you,
What were the
like
red flags?
you. So did you see? Because now we have to think about responsibility and accountability.
Mhm.
So we're always telling men, they need to work on accountability and responsibility, taking responsibility for what they did. But and also, right? I think as women, um, when you talk about being in the meantime, reflecting, being introspective about what happened, a part of that process has to be like, okay, like she mentioned, I saw the red flags, right? Because if you don't deal with that, then you'll find yourself back in another relationship dealing with those same red flags.
Mhm.
And so I'm just curious about what were maybe some red flags. I mean, I think about even when I got a divorce, right? It was so easy to sit up and say, oh, they did this or they did that. Like it's so easy to do that. But I
Mhm.
really had to sit with myself. And I was talking to another one of my daughters, and she was saying that when she went through a breakup, just sitting with yourself and really thinking about what was my part in that, what could I have done differently, right?
Mhm.
So that while we're in this in the meantime space, because we've
Mhm.
already said over and over, right, that it's growth takes place in the meantime, or at least it can, depending on
Yeah.
how you deal with this in the meantime space. So I'm just wondering when y'all think about red flags, um, what do we do with that, y'all? Like, why do we even ignore? Because most people will say, I saw red flags. And some people don't. Some people say, you know what, I didn't see anything. And I think that just has to do with sometimes when things are new and fresh and, we're all in love and, all of that. It's just kind of hard to see or focus on that, right? We just kind of rationalize it. But What are y'all's thoughts about red flags? Did you
I
see
think
any? What do you think about them?
I think one of the biggest red flags she should have saw was communication,
Mm.
because communication is so important. It
Yeah.
is communication and our finances. Those are two, I think, big. That should have been like the United States flag. That should huge. That should have been a
Yeah.
huge,
Mm-hmm.
huge,
Mm-hmm.
huge flag.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but
Wow.
communicate, because sometimes we are afraid to communicate. We are
Yes.
fearful to communicate
And
because
why? Why
we
do you think that is?
because if you bring something that up, he might walk out. He might get mad
Mm.
and walk out.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Boy,
Yes.
bye.
And we can say that now, but when you're
Mhm.
in that moment and you
Mhm.
fear being lonely and you fear, going back to, when you didn't have anybody and you fear societal pressures of you're supposed to have somebody, get married, have, all of
Mm-hmm.
those things come to
Mm-hmm.
mind. You're right. We shut down and we don't say anything, like,
Mhm.
right? For
Yeah.
fear that they might leave.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think a part of that communication red flag, Mom, I think you read this in a book once because you referred to it often. Robin, somebody I think was the author of it,
Yes,
but
Dr. Robin
it's
Smith.
essentially this idea that I don't bring things to my partner because if and when I do, they are immediately defensive,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I have learned to just whenever I'm feeling challenged about something or feeling like it's something that it bothers me, I don't want to bring it to that person. And so I think for me, that is a huge red flag because essentially what you're teaching yourself to do is to just hold in anything that could possibly be something, a tough conversation to have. So you got to ask yourself, do you want that for the rest of your life? That anytime something comes up, I got to walk on eggshells. I got to say, okay, now how I'm gonna write down how I'm gonna say this. Oh, I know he finna get defensive, and he not gonna try to hear me. I dated this guy, and it was the most frustrating thing ever. An inability to admit any wrongdoing for anything. Okay. And so again, I think if not just communication, can you talk to this person? But when you talk to this person, is this person a soft place for your words to land? You know what I mean? Like I feel something deep down and I want to share with you. Do you receive that message in a way that is where you hear, you're listening, you're thinking, and you welcome that for the betterment of the relationship? Or do you say, oh, again, now we got to talk about something else. There's always something with you.
Yes, yes,
So red flag, huge red flag, I think. And I think, to your point, Mom, about like, you look, what do you say about yourself? Relationships are not just the work of one person, right? So
right.
obviously you got to say, hey, what did I bring to this mess of a situation? Or what did I allow? Because it's still, you brought a personality or a characteristic that allow for an unhealthy balance in the relationship. So you got to say, you know what? How do I leave that out of the next time? How do I learn and grow from that so that the next time I don't even, y'all know, you may not know this, but I'm gonna break up with him. I'm not for the linger too long. I'm not gonna let you play around with me.
That's you. Baby, you
I'm
be
not
out
gonna
of
let you
there.
play around with me.
Yeah.
So, Angela, are you looking like that?
And I mean, Miss
God,
Angela.
listen. So, but even if you bring to the relationship, I stick around for mistreatment. Again, you got to say why. Why is that okay with me? Why do I allow that? And everybody's got a reason. Everybody's got a story. You could have been grown. You could have grown up in a household where you were a people pleaser because it wasn't safe to say no, to say out, to voice your opinions and your feelings. So I'm not saying it's necessarily the fault of the person, but I do think that in order to move forward and heal from that and move forward to potentially another stronger relationship, you got to self-evaluate and say, what did I contribute here, and what did I allow here that contributed to 5 years long of playing around, playing these reindeer games.
You so right. Now 5 years, I was trying to think what relationship. I guess that was the longest relationship that I was in for 16 years. Oh, that was a long time.
That's a long time. That's a long. And I think about, but you and you were so young, right? When we think about,
Yeah,
because I was too,
yeah,
I was a
yeah,
teen mom. So when
yeah.
you think about how young you were, so just developmentally,
Mm,
right? Not even fully understanding what relationships are supposed to be about because you were still developing yourself. And
yes,
then you
yes,
get with somebody, right? And then, for both of us, we had started having children young,
yes, yes.
and then just all of that muddies the water because then you feel some obligation to stay there because now you're talking about your children's father,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And not wanting a broken home. And sometimes as women, the onus of all of that is on us. Like, well, at least we take it on, right? Like
Mm.
we feel like we
But
have
you
to be
know
the
what?
glue that holds the family together,
Yeah, I
regardless of what's
remember
going on.
writing in that journal, God, you can bless me with this man. We have
Mm.
3 children. I don't see why not. I don't understand why we can't be together.
Yep.
Girl, all that bullshit.
I knew
Not,
it was coming. I
girl,
Look,
when I,
y'all,
woo,
she gonna let one slip every now and then. That is, I love
knew. I
it.
love it.
girl,
I
Yeah.
love it.
Mhm.
But
what
that's
in the
it.
world was I thinking?
Yeah.
But I don't even think you were thinking that I'm trying to do the right thing based on what I have been taught the right thing is. We look at religion, we look at what we've been taught spiritually. You were thinking about your children because you said it. I'm just saying, and
Girl.
I'm not saying these decisions are not, but we make them a lot of times thinking we're making the right decision and we're doing it because of for whatever reason, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
provide rationale for
Mm-hmm.
why we should do
Mm-hmm.
this or stay here.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
want to say one more thing and then we can kind of move on. But I think another thing, and I've heard this recently and talked to people about it recently, this idea that, a lot of us didn't know what healthy relationships look like. We just out here
Yes.
wading in the water.
And you
That's true.
and you're right. And you
Yep.
Just out here
right.
wading in the water with
Trying to
no,
figure
So,
it out.
like no
so
upfront
what
direction.
do a healthy relationship look like?
Mm,
Mhm.
What
that's good.
what does it look like?
I love that question. Yes, that's a good question.
That is a good question. We got answers?
Yes, let's go. Let go. Let go.
Yeah, I think ultimately relationships are partnerships that help you become the best version of yourself.
Mm,
And I think, that happens in a lot of different ways. And, no two relationships are the same. And how people come together and sing that song and do that dance is individual and unique. But I think it is a healthy relationship is one where two people can walk in partnership where they are reciprocating love and communication and navigating challenges together.
yes.
Life isn't going to be all peaches and roses, but I think there is a beauty in having somebody who is willing and who desires to
Yes.
travel that road with you. I used to think it was just going to be so hard to even get to the point where I want somebody walking alongside me, my life, because that's a vulnerable position. You trust this person, you got to be around this person. I'm used to making decisions for myself, by
Yeah,
myself.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
And so I think there are lots of characteristics of strong relationships, but I certainly think that individual growth and the beauty of love and partnership and community and all of those things are a part of it. Um,
Yeah.
And I want to add, I think the word safe space. So when you think about a healthy relationship, that relationship has to exist in or has to be a safe space for each person.
mm,
Because I think vulnerability is so challenging for so many people. And I'm going to specifically say for men because of how they were socialized, but also for us as women sometimes too, right? And so I think that when you talk about a healthy, because
Uh-uh.
when I think healthy, then I'm thinking on the other end of that, like what is a toxic relationship? Like, because on the other side is a toxic relationship. So a healthy one to me is what you said, Tiffany. I was beautifully articulated. And I would just add to that I think it has to reside in a safe spot for
mm,
both
mm, mm,
people, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, and I just think that's important.
All right. She talked about the quiet after it was over and how heavy it got. So
Mm-hmm.
she, in this relationship, the relationship started getting rocky. It was a slow moving process. It wasn't just like oh my goodness, one big thing happened. It was, a series of things that sounded like that culminated in kind of the demise of the relationship. So let's talk about, how heavy it gets, that type
Mm-hmm.
of loneliness that exists, not being single, but the kind where you're surrounded by people and it still feels like nobody really sees you, right? There
Mm-hmm.
and she also talked about kind of like the idea of like I'm getting there, but some days are still very heavy, and some days I feel lighter. But what do we think about that?
So while you're thinking, I'm just going to jump in there and say the loneliness. Like when you said, sometimes people say, well, you shouldn't be lonely. You have family and you have friends and you have all these people around you,
And
right?
you got the
And
movies,
I, what'd you say,
the
Angela?
movies,
The
the movies.
movies.
Right, but think about it. But so yes, you have those things, but I think what we don't maybe deal with is like, so we have love in our lives a lot of times, but
Yeah.
not the kind of love, the romantic love,
Yeah.
right? The love that you would have with a partner. And
Mhm.
so even though you might be surrounded by people and love, and yeah, you can go and do things by yourself and get to know yourself, because those are all the things that we say you should be doing, right? But loneliness is real, and it's
Mhm.
not about being alone, right? Because you can have people around you. That's different from loneliness, like what you feel internally
Mhm.
sometimes, right? About wanting somebody in a particular, like a romantic relationship versus one where you're talking about with your children and family and all of that. That is just so different, and I
Yeah.
think it's important that we're able to express that without people coming to like, well, but you got people and you have people who love you and da da da. That is different.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm. And that's
different.
okay. It's okay to desire
Yes.
that. And I think that's,
Yes.
that's what you're getting at here. I say, when it comes to
Hey.
trying to make people understand, I guess, especially people who have been partnered for so long, like,
Hmm.
but this idea of, being single, and not having a plus one to go to the wedding with. Um,
Mm.
coming home from a long day's work, and just thinking to yourself, what am I going to eat today? Because there's nobody else to ask if what they want to eat, and there's
Hmm.
nobody who asked you before you got home what you wanted because they was going to pick it up.
Right.
It's the little things, and I
Thing.
what you say? What
A good
It's a
thing.
good thing, yeah. And I think it's like the little things. I think people
Yeah.
kind of look at it as kind of like an overdose. Oh, girl, well, you ain't missing out on nothing. Well, that's easy for you to say if you got somebody.
Right.
And then just I think too the idea of even just um having somebody on the holidays, and you can be
Yes.
happy for your friends, and you can be happy for everybody dressing up in matching PJs and all this kind of great stuff. And it's not to say that you aren't happy for them or that you're jealous or anything like that. But those days do remind you that you don't have that,
Exactly.
and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
it's those types of things that I think that can be heavy, especially after breakup, and especially after if you've been with somebody for 5 years, I assume you've connected your life with them in so many different ways. Y'all
Yes.
probably got enmeshed friend groups. And
Yep.
are you about to lose, who he brought to the friend group versus who you might have brought to the friend group, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
families,
Yeah. Now that's
you
something
may
to
have
think about.
gotten to know.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Wow, wow. Well, I'll just say that loneliness is just that, right? And it's okay to feel lonely, and it's okay to sit with your feelings. And I think that when we talk about in the meantime, that is what we need to do. Like really, like we can't skip
Mm-hmm.
over that part, although we want to,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
One of the things I was in that story, she talked about checking their page, and because she did
Yeah.
pretty good starting off. We do good
Yeah.
starting off,
Yeah.
but then you get a
Yeah.
little lonely and you feel like you should text the person, or I just want closure, and I just want to make sure that this person is out my system. When in fact, we know sometimes it's a little bit more than that. We're lonely, and maybe in our minds, have they changed? Have they thought about us?
Mhm.
We want to know what they're thinking. Have they moved on? And so I'm wondering, for you all, like the moving on part, like, y'all, that's the challenge. Like you want to, you need to,
Yeah.
but Sometimes even when you've disconnected, right? Like you're no longer with that person, you try to think of little ways to reconnect. And what is that about? And what helps a person in that meantime space? What you think?
Mm.
I heard somebody say, and I agree with this, and I know it's easier said than done. So this is being part of my, but I mean, if there is a way to do it, make yourself disgusted with wanting anybody who doesn't want you. At
Mm.
the moment I realize you don't want me, it's a turnoff.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because
Mm.
then, if you can shift your mind to like, I'm sitting over here soaking, crying, whatever, and checking the page, and he's, oh no. Oh no, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Maybe that's just my own ego, but I think for me, I think that part of it is helpful to say, I'm not going to give any more. I've given so much of my emotional uncertainty and lamenting and all these things through the course of the relationship, through the breakup, and now that the breakup has happened, I'm still offering to you my sadness. I'm still offering my heartbreak up on a platter to just, and so I don't know. I think in my mind, I'll be trying to, you don't want me, I don't want you.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Me too. Me too.
Uh-huh.
Me too, Tiff. Me
Yeah.
too. Because I have learned to love me.
Mm.
I have learned to love me. When I tell y'all, I wish you could see what I see,
Mm.
girl.
Wow. Mm.
I love me. I love Angela.
Mm.
All 60 years. I love me.
Mm. And that's a game changer when you can get to
It's
that
it,
point.
it is. It is.
Yeah,
It
it
is.
it, it makes a difference. Well, let me ask y'all this then, because sometimes it seems like men can move on quicker, like they find somebody else quicker than women, and we sitting up, And I think sometimes that's what causes maybe some women to want to reach back out again and want to see what's going, because it seems like they move quicker. Do you feel like as women that you should jump right into another relationship? Do you think that's healthy? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
I would say my answer to that, I think, would be, I don't think there's a particular timeline of moving on, because who's to say that a year or 2 months, 2 weeks, or whatever,
Yeah.
I think that's an individual choice. But I do think that studies actually show that men take breaking up harder than women do. And they actually, even if they don't act like it, they hold on to those feelings of disconnect for longer. Now, a lot of them might find it easier to, kind of jump into the arms of another woman. But it is often not, it is often kind of like a some Vaseline rubbing on a wound, right?
Mm.
And so it's a little more shallow, I think the studies show when they do it. But I'll also say this. I think that women are largely kind of breaking up through the process of still being in a relationship. So by the time it
Oh
actually
yeah.
ends, they've gotten to a
That's
point
true.
where, I've gone through all of the 7 different levels of grief and all this kind of great stuff. And sometimes, that process has already kind of happened some for us. And I think in this situation, maybe he's already disconnected too, but you never really know. My thing is, I would be trying not to dwell on it, like
Mm.
his healing and how far along he is, and if the woman, and I know it's hard, it's easy to say that, right? Because you're what does she have that I didn't have, and
Mhm.
what is it about her that, and so I'm certainly not taking that lightly, but I don't think
I
it's
like
healthy in your
Yeah.
healing to constantly be checking in on the other person, because it's either going to make you say, well, I don't see anything else going on, I'm gonna reach out, or
Mhm.
it's going to make you say, oh my gosh, I feel so bad about myself because he's already moved on. And neither one of those things help you get to where you need to be.
Mm.
So anyway, that's what my thoughts about it.
Wow. Wow.
I don't think
Mm.
neither one of those things are true. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Maybe he hadn't moved on
Mm.
mentally. Mentally.
Mm.
Mentally,
Wow.
maybe he hadn't moved on.
Yeah.
Mm. And then the question though is, but even if he has, what, right? Like
Maybe
we
he
have
has.
no control over that. We have, right? So still, it's up to us, right, during these heartbreak seasons to
Mhm.
figure out um, how can we shift our energy? What can we do to
Mhm.
move through
Ooh,
this process, right? And so
right.
I think that's the, like what do I need for this next season?
Hmm.
Well, how do I need to move on?
Yeah.
And I think those are some of the questions that we have to ask
Yeah.
ourselves, or anybody who's in a heartbreak season.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
true. That is
And I
true.
think part
Mhm.
of that kind of self-evaluation part will kind of help answer some of those questions. I will say, I think a lot of times when we are going through that kind of like post breakup, and we're in the meantime between that and perhaps something else, we tend to think about all of the good things that
Yeah.
relationship brought, or that person brought, right? And we
Mhm.
don't necessarily always grab, because if you're saying I miss this person, okay, so you can think about the things that you miss, but you aren't
Mhm.
necessarily thinking about the reasons why it didn't work. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so I
Right.
think part of the process is like, I may miss these things, but these things also came with, but she named that gaslighting and that turning things around. And I'm
Yeah.
apologizing when I bring something to you, that type of thing. And that's, I think part of it is kind of making sure the balance of your mind, there's a reason why the relationship has ended. And certainly
Mhm.
not saying that, relationships can't come back around or whatever, but I do think we tend to dwell in the positive a little bit. And I think we also tend to dwell in the fantasy a little bit, because
Mm.
sometimes we're grieving a man who wasn't even there.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We thinking about wedding and children and
Amazing.
whatever, the
Hmm.
completely imagined future experience with somebody who that experience hadn't even happened, right? So a
Mm.
lot of it is grieving our own idea of what was to come. That hadn't come yet, and he did just come with somebody else.
Mm.
But I think that's I think a part of it too, and so we can shift our energy toward I love the quote, "Nothing for me will pass me by." If it went
Mm.
out the door, if it went out the door,
Mm.
it was not for me to hold on to.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's with
Oh
a
yeah.
relationship, with
Hmm.
job opportunities, with all kinds of friendship relationships. Those sometimes come to an end,
Yeah,
and so
yeah, yeah.
holding the idea of that, I will have everything meant for me to have.
Mm.
Everything meant. There won't be a thing left when I take my last breath that was
Mm.
like, oh, that was supposed to be yours, but it didn't happen. Nope.
Mm.
Everything that's for me will happen for me.
Mm.
I agree. I agree.
Mm. She made some very good points in that letter, and really gave me some things to think about, right? And I hope people in our audience are thinking, like, they're thinking about their perhaps breakups that they had and how to move forward and that kind of thing.
I think it's also helpful, say this before we go to the takeaways, is to listen to people. Angela said a little while ago, what was I thinking?
Mm.
About, because you're so far removed from it now. And
Yes.
so when people say, I certainly can look back to relationships and be like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
And maybe thinking to yourself, one day I'm going to be like, what was I thinking? Because something else is going to be so much better. And you're going to be like, I am so glad that this ended, because it
Yes.
made way for something else
When
that
Mm.
was just, I didn't even know was just going to be so much greater and so much better. That had I been trying to hold on to this over here that was clearly not working, I never would have allowed myself to the space to invite something else in.
when I was little, Tiffany, there was a song we used to sing in the church. I'm so glad trouble don't last always.
Mm.
Girl.
Mm.
Uh,
I'm so glad.
uh, I'm so glad, girl.
Mm.
Woo,
Yeah.
Lord, thank you, Jesus. Mm.
Wow, wow. Well, at the end of the day, look, learning to rebuild our rhythm, our peace, our joy, um, it's so important. Like, so while we're in this meantime, even if we're going through heartbreak, because once you stop waiting for them to notice you, you start noticing yourself. And so even if you're going through heartbreak, once you get to that point where you say, you know what? And Angela, you've said it several times today. It really is about learning to love yourself. And then I think when you start really, really loving yourself, you get out of this kind of perpetual place of
Yeah,
waiting on somebody else to love you, to notice you, to validate you, to do
yeah,
all the things. And you start doing those things for yourself. And so
yeah,
then back to what we were saying earlier about the question you had about a healthy relationship. Wow, when we can start working on those things, right?
Mhm.
That takes us to this place. Because can you imagine if both people are being introspective, if both people are learning through their heartbreaks, not just going through, but learning and growing through those
Mhm.
heartbreaks. And then you finally, Tiffany, you said get with somebody, right? Because you said nothing will pass you by. And if you can look back on things and say, what was I thinking? But you made the brave and courageous decision to get out of that, to keep moving ahead, even though it was challenging and lonely and all of the things. And then it made way for something more special, something beautiful, which I think is what we all want as humans, right? We want to exist and be in healthy relationships. And so yeah, we got to love ourselves and forget about them noticing us and start noticing who we are, the beautiful people that we are, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
so in the meantime, heartbreak is not the end of your becoming, it's the soil where the next season grows, right? So
Absolutely.
that place in that's what it is, right?
Yeah. So endings don't hurt. Like Miss Angela said, trouble don't last always.
That's right.
But they remind us that love isn't something we lose. It's something we learn from. It's something we grow from.
Yes.
And so if at the end of a tumultuous situation and you're going through that heartbreak and you're finding yourself in the meantime in a really tough, challenging meantime, think to yourself, man, this is just fertile ground for something else beautiful to grow here. So yeah. So
Absolutely.
here's your question for the week for our audience. What is one truth that you're holding on to as you heal in the meantime? So we're going to start off with Mom answering that question and then Ms. Angela um, answering that question. What is one truth you're holding on to as you heal in the meantime?
So one truth I'm holding on to is that I am, and I'm gonna steal from you, Miss Angela. I am in the process of loving me, and so as I heal, as I go through life, as I'm in these in the meantime spaces, I'm trying to evolve and grow and learn and unlearn and love on Dolores. Yes.
Oh, Dolores. Same,
Mm,
same.
yes.
I am learning how to do a lot of self care.
Mm,
Something real simple. Somebody else probably, yeah, they probably been doing it for years. I started doing gel toenail polish. I think my
mm,
mom said that she don't use it because it don't last me too long. She said,
Yeah.
mm,
but it lasts me a long time. So I enjoy going to get my feet done, get my
mm,
eyebrows done.
mm.
And to me, that's some self care. That is
Yes.
some good self care.
Mm.
And I think what I'm going to do, maybe by the end of October, I'm going to do a um a massage, massage.
Okay, yes, I love it.
I want to go do
Yes.
a massage. I
All right.
probably need to do that about once a month. But
Yes.
yeah, I want to go do a massage.
All
Mhm.
right. I
Okay.
love it. Tiffany, what are you thinking?
So I'm taking from me, I'm going to take one and then I want to give it to the audience too. Whenever you're with somebody and you're like, this person isn't treating me right. This I got from TikTok. And they say, my husband would never. Right?
Mm,
So it would be like, oh, like Miss Angela said, oh, somebody raised their voice at you and you're thinking about whether or not this is the right thing. You might think to yourself, you know what, my husband would never. The man that
mm,
I'm supposed to be with eventually would never treat me this way. So
mm.
my husband would never, and
That's
that's a
it.
comforting
Yeah.
thing to know that, hey, maybe this is not the situation you need to stay in and that breakup might be warranted because your husband would never. Your husband would
Yes, I
never walk
love
in smelling like outside in somebody else's perfume.
Exactly.
That's right. Well, look, you all, we would love to hear from you. So send us your story or voice note. We want you to join us. Follow us at In the Meantime. Your story might become our next Porch Talk.
And don't pretty it up for us. We like the real version of it. Don't pretty
Yes.
it up. We like the
That's
real version.
right. So, look, for now, in the meantime, I'm giving myself permission to rest, not rush.
For me, in the meantime, I'm remembering that healing is not linear, it's loops, and that's okay.
And for now, and in the meantime, I'm loving myself.
Y'all, this is In the Meantime.
Wisdom for the spaces between who we were
and who we are becoming.
And look, you don't have to have it all figured out.
Just be where you are.
and take something for the road, preferably some chocolate.
Yeah.
Give a big chocolate.
With peanuts. With peanuts, right?
Thank y'all for listening.
Yay.
In the Meantime is a production of Black Unicorn Productions. This episode was executive produced by Tanisha Williams. Music by Presence of Sean. Special thanks to you, our community, for sitting with us in the meantime. Until next time, remember, the meantime is a porch, a prayer, and a promise. A sacred space between who we were and who we are becoming. This is In the Meantime.